Thank you very much, Councillor Chris. Our next speaker is no stranger to the UNC. Ms. Kadijah Ameen was appointed as an opposition senator Wednesday, September 23, 2015, at the start of the 11th Republican Parliament. Ms. Ameen previously served as the chairman of the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation. Ms. Ameen is also the deputy political leader of the United National Congress. She has served our party for most of our life, a true member of the UNC, a woman who bleeds yellow. Please welcome to the podium, Senator Kadijah Ameen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Member of Parliament for Naparima, Mr. Rodney Charles, my colleague, Senator Saddam Hussein, your councillor, your representative for this electoral district, Mr. Chris Hussein, other members, Mr. Chairman, Gori Rupnarain. Gori, I'm always so proud when I hear Gori talk because he don't like to talk on platform and things too much. He's a man of action. Fellow councillors from the United National Congress for varying electoral districts, my UNC family, a special good evening, and I want to thank you for your warm welcome to this UNC Fight Back meeting here at Reform Hindu School. I want to thank Chris for having this meeting at this particular school. This Reform Hindu School is one of the numerous schools in Trinidad and Tobago that has been victimized by the People's National Movement. There are several schools that have been shut down. There are schools where the children have been held in annexes. There are schools where children are held under sheds. There are schools where it was under construction under the United National Congress. But because of the vindictive PNM government, all construction has stopped. And I will tell you, at Reform, your children are in a cramped space. Yesterday, I was in a pre-budget consultation in John, Lavantil West constituency. When we feel that the UNC constituencies are being victimized, I want to tell you, the PNM does not care for the UNC constituencies. They have made that very clear with the utterances of Mr. Fitzgerald Hines. But you know what? They also don't care about the PNM constituencies. Because right in John, in Lavantil West constituency, the St. Philip's School and 2 other primary schools have been closed since the PNM came into government. The children gather on a morning in a little shed, and a bus takes them to a rented building some way off for them to be taught for classes. And in the evening time, the bus would pick them up and drop them down. You know what happens if they miss the bus? They have to travel. But in Sawa, the same thing is happening with the Sawa Boys Primary School. They have been in a building in St. Augustine on the Eastern Main Road for more than 3 years. In Arima Central Secondary School, Arima Hindu School. In Debe, Ramai Trace Hindu School, you have heard the Member of Parliament, Dr. Munilal, talk about that school. These are only a few. I have a whole list. But I'm just giving you a sample to tell you that the PNM's neglect and victimization spans across the constituency. Because it is not as though they care for the PNM areas. They care to win government and stay in power and see about themselves and their friends and their families. And we have to get rid of them. The PNM's concern is not to improve lives in Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, the only constituencies they are doing any work are the marginal constituencies. The whole of Trinidad and Tobago is underwater massive flooding in different parts of Trinidad and Tobago. But I want you to do some research and check and see where the Ministry of Works is busy. They are busy in La Joquita Talparo. They are busy in Greenville because La Joquita Talparo is marginal and they want to retain that seat in order to retain government. All the time they ain't doing nothing, you know. And I want to tell you, the member of parliament for that area, he suffered a stroke. He was out of compliance for some time, but I do wish him a speedy recovery. But quite frankly, before he became ill, he wasn't any better of a representative. He was always a half-dead fella. He really wasn't representing the constituency well. So their representation is poor in the PNM constituencies, and they totally neglect the UNC constituencies. And that level of neglect goes into local government. My colleague, young Senator, young Councillor Chris Hussain, has spoken about local government, and I am so proud of our UNC councillors. With all the neglect and the lack of funds coming from local government, at this time under the PNM is talking about local government reform. So they had 14 big expensive meetings, big screen in the background, if you see it looking like foreign. They spent a lot of money to do this public relations exercise that they call consultations. But those were really town meetings where people get to give their complaints. Nobody had any draft legislation for any consultation to take place. The PNM is now using the excuse of local government reform to tell us what we know all the time, that local government needs to be improved. None of us is in a disagreement that we must make things better in local government. But I can tell you, legislation could only take you so far. It takes political will to change lives. And the PNM lacks political will or moral authority to talk about representing people. What I want to tell you is that when the UNC was in government, when Kamla Persad Bissessa was a prime minister, I was a councillor and a chairman of Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation. I am so grateful for that opportunity for Kamla Persad Bissessa having that confidence in me to appoint me at that time and when I became the youngest ever chairman of a regional corporation in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is why we have people like Chris Hussain and other young councillors, because of that confidence Kamla Persad Bissessa puts in young people. And during that time, we didn't have new laws, but we had sweeping changes in local government to make it more effective. It was under Kamla Persad Bissessa that councillors got offices, had secretaries, have a little stipend to buy paper to print paper and ink and thing. We had monies coming to the regional corporation on time. The same money that has been approved in the budget, the PNM is waiting until the end of the financial year to release it to the corporations, and whole year you're scrunting. That is the difference between the leadership of Kamla Persad Bissessa and this PNM in local government. All our ministers worked with councillors when we were in government. I didn't say they worked with UNC councillors. We had UNC councillors, COP councillors, PNM councillors, and whenever the ministers were delivering or doing any project in an area, there was then the involvement of the councillor for the area. So that when drainage division cleaning the big water courses, there would be collaboration with the corporations to ensure that the drains that take the water out of the villages, out of the agricultural areas, are clear, and it would have a smooth flow down to the major water courses and then out into the ocean. That doesn't happen anymore. Everybody doing their own thing. The left hand don't know what the right hand doing. Poor Kazem Hussain, he's the Minister of Local Government, and I don't think anybody in that cabinet is taking him on. Because if they took local government seriously, Kazem Hussein would have had the funding from the Minister of Finance, Mr. Imbert, to do what is required for local government and for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. When we were in government, local government, the agricultural access roads were developed through the corporation. When we were there, NGOs, sports groups could have applied to get funding under self-help to fix the little clubhouse and thing. That don't happen again. That used to happen through councillors. In fact, masjids, temples, churches were given grants, and most of these were facilitated through the councillors, grants to repair their places of worship. So local government is not just about road and drains. They call us the box drain government to try to embarrass us for performing where they have failed. And we must stand up to that. And that is why today I am on this platform with Councillor Chris Hussein on Fight Back Friday. We must fight back. My friends, the PNM will continue to lie to us. They will continue to try to embarrass us for performing. The level of boldfacedness of this PNM, it is amazing. It is astounding. They will look at you and tell you you are pink, and you looking in the mirror and doubting yourself whether you're brown or pink. They will tell you your hair is blue, and you seeing it black, and it make you, oh boy, I wonder what really going on.
Oh Lord!
That is the level of lies. Because they apply the principles of propaganda used by dictators in history. And those who are familiar with political history will be familiar with some of those principles of propaganda. And wherever you see the media being used by a certain political party in government to carry their voice, wherever you see people losing jobs left, right, and center, things falling apart, and a minister of finance telling you the economy is booming, we are turning around, the sun is coming out, it's shining brilliantly, and you dark and trembling under a leaf. That is the kind of lies and brainwashing they will tell you. But you know what else comes with it? They are focused on giving you their story alone. They will tell you the sun is shining, hot and shining, when it is pouring rain. But the other side of it is that they will shut up anybody who tells you it's raining. The suppression of freedom of speech, the suppression of the media to tell the truth, the suppression of social media outside of commercial and organized media is a dangerous precedent, and it is a suppression of truth and fairness, and it is a suppression of the rights of citizens. And we are creeping towards that. In Trinidad and Tobago, where politicians could go on platforms, where union leaders could drag mannequin and beat it and talk all kind of thing, all of a sudden, a union leader is arrested. We have to get together and condemn the suppression of freedom of speech by this PNM government and by any government. It is dangerous. The PNM has focused so much on telling us lies such as the empty treasury. You know the empty treasury? Well, the other day they pull out a few, how much it was, Saddam, for the Whitehall. Out of the empty treasury, they pull out 32 million for the Whitehall. This government has spent $229 billion since it came in office. That is by far more than the People's Partnership spent in the same amount of time we were in office. But they will tell you that the UNC spent out all the money. You saw box drains, you saw hospitals, you saw schools, you saw performance when the UNC it was in government. What does the PNM have to show? They refurbished Whitehall, they bought some paintings, they spent billions of dollars on a sea bridge that still doesn't work. The people of Trinidad and Tobago are getting worse health care. Children are cramped in schools or put out of their schools completely. People are no longer getting food cards and social benefits. Where the money gone? You must ask them that. They continue to blame the UNC for the economy. They continue to blame the UNC for crime. To the extent, I don't know if you remember, there is something that is very popular on social media. It is a quote from Dr. Rowley, where he said, if you are in government and you can't deal with the problem, get out. He also spoke about whoever is in government being the one to blame. They must take responsibility, and if they can't take responsibility, they must get out. Well, tonight, I want to tell Dr. Rowley, it is time to get out. Call the election and let the people have their say. The PNM has spent so much time blaming the opposition. When they brought the anti-gang legislation to Parliament, the opposition told them it is flawed, it infringes on the rights, the human rights and the constitutional rights of the people, of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and it can be a tool used by dictators to victimize and target people. The UNC opposition offered to sit with them and fix the bill. They refused. And because we did not vote in favor of it, they were all over the place. They said that they had the name and address and all the information on all the gang leaders in Trinidad and Tobago, and the UNC was preventing them from locking up these people because we did not vote in favor of the anti-gang legislation. Well, you know what? They said the same thing with the bail bill. When the UNC expressed concern with the bail bill, they said, blame the UNC because UNC is allowing the criminals to go free. But when the UNC voted in favor of the anti-gang legislation and voted in favor of the bail bill, I want to ask you, have you seen any reduction in crime? Are we any better off? Are we less in fear of losing our lives? You go out the road to buy a newspaper, you go to buy a doubles, you could be gunned down. I went to the funeral today of the sister of an independent senator, a retired nurse, disappeared. For days, they were searching for her. These questions have no answers. Our country is less and less safe every day. We had a massacre in Orange Valley. Those fishermen still hurting. I attended a meeting this week in Cali Bay, where some of those relatives were there. The blood that is spilling in our streets, it is totally unacceptable. And instead of solving the problem, instead of dealing with crime, the PNM is busy trying to blame the opposition. And I want to tell Keith Rowley, for every person that has lost a loved one in Trinidad and Tobago, their tears will fall on you. Your days are numbered. When the UNC was in government, our principal, our approach, the leader of the National Security Council was the Prime Minister, Kamla Persad Bissessa. Boots on the ground. There was the hard approach to crime fighting and the soft approach to crime fighting. Legislation alone does not solve crime. You can vote for how many bills you want in Parliament. If you don't have action, if you don't equip the police, you will be falling to zero. When we were in government, we equipped the police with vehicles, with technology, the technology to fight crime. When we went in government in 2010, I was the councillor for a little electoral district called Valsain South Karapo. The Piako police station was in that district. The first time I went to that station with a resident of my electoral district, we nearly fall through the floor. It was a building that was about 4 or 5 feet high. You went up a little concrete step. And when you went in, it was board floor, wooden floor. But because the roof was leaking, the board was rotted, and the officers who worked there knew where to walk. You had to know where to walk. And when the UNC, it wasn't until they remained in that building for many years until the UNC came into government. When Kamala Prasad Visesa was Prime Minister, there were 9 police stations built and completed and delivered, and 2 more that were close to completion that were completed a few months after we demitted office. We built police stations in Arima, in Brasso, in Kumuto, in Labre, in Maloney, in Maruga, in Oropuch, in Piako, and the St. Joseph and Besor Street were open after a few months after we demitted office. It was started under the People's Partnership. Do you see any discrimination in where those police stations were built? The People's Partnership represented all of Trinidad and Tobago. This PNM government has not built a single police station in all its term in office. But I want to tell them, the people of Trinidad and Tobago are not blind. Social media will shed more light than traditional media, which may sometimes have its biases. Even in the rural areas in Trinidad, people are getting information, and I don't think the PNM has very long there. They're really not going to last. What I am finding is a sense of camaraderie on the ground. I go to every part of Trinidad as well as Tobago and just talk to ordinary people. I go to small meetings where we have about 20 people from a community who talk about their issues, and we talk one-on-one. I go to bigger meetings like these, but I stay and interact with people. And I can tell you that UNC people are realizing now how important it is for us to stand up. Undecided people are realizing that the PNM has to go. And even the PNM people are ashamed of their government. The writing is on the wall. The PNM must go. And I think it is because of my background in local government that I always like to maintain that key sense of groundedness, if I may use that word. And Chris, when he started off, you mentioned the Pilau story, and you are now forcing me to tell this story because, you know, and it really has to do with why I joined the UNC. And quite frankly, I joined the UNC because I lived in a constituency where my member of parliament was PNM. My member of parliament was Camille Robinson Regis. And it is thanks to that neglect and mistreatment of that constituency that I decided to join the UNC. So I must thank the PNM for me joining the UNC, because it was their poor performance and poor representation that made me decide to join the UNC. But a Pata Pilau became my signature, one of my signature ways of uniting people. I could make a Pata Pilau with anything. And vegetarian pilau, anything. We put corn, we put soya, you put okra, you put anything really. But to me, a yes, okra. To me, a Pata Pilau, the Pata Pilau story is a story where people who had no political office, at that time I was a student, I had what I didn't know what was called a homework center. At that time, it was a shed in the village where we kept community meetings. We had a little blackboard about 4 feet by 4 feet that had a hole in the middle. Our duster was a piece of sponge cut from somebody's mattress. And I used to buy chalk out of my allowance. And I used to teach children how to do work they were in SCA class. And as the children came, they brought their younger siblings. And we would put them in a little corner to play, give them crayons and so on. And afterwards, of course, they want to take a little sweat. But our savannah was just an abandoned piece of land. So every so often, I used to go and buy $10 gas for the village worker man to cut the savannah for us. He used to just do it, provide him with the gas, and he would do it because, of course, our councillor and our MP, who were both PNM, had neglected us. And that waterlogged piece of land that was often overgrown, because we were cutting it regular, it started to become the savannah. And on a Saturday morning, I used to ask my brothers and his friends and others, even the children in the class, to come and help. And on a Saturday morning, we dig a drain around the savannah. But of course, nobody is working for any pay. So I used to make a pot of pillau and a mug of Kool-Aid. And we used to go out the road, because where we lived had no electricity. We used to go out the road and buy a piece of ice and put it in the mug of juice. And around a pot of pillau, we did many projects, if I have to call them that, projects like that. Digging drains to drain off the area, meeting to discuss issues such as naming streets in our community and so on. But a lot was done around a pot of pillau. And to see that people in communities who did things like that were able, when Kamala Prasad Bisesa, to see a ground like the ground where I live, have concrete box drains, completely filled and nice lawn-looking grass, lights, stadium lights, so many, it wasn't my area alone that developed like that, so many places in Trinidad and Tobago where for years people would have to gather around a pot of pillau or cheese paste sandwich is the next famous one, to do work like that, had their areas developed. And to see, on the other hand, the PNM trying to shame us by calling us a box drain government when they neglected to build so many box drains over the years that it has led to flooding and other problems. I think it really speaks to the kind of leadership Kamala Prasad Bisesa has shown Trinidad and Tobago to allow little voices in communities to be heard, to allow little people and little villages to be developed. Why must a ground in South, in Debe, in Reform, in Rio Claro not have lights? Why must only north of the Caroni River have smooth roads? That type of representation to ensure that roads in every part of the country were developed doesn't only benefit the people who live there. It means as a country where we have a good road network, we are more attractive for foreign investors, for people to come from abroad, for people to open businesses, and that stimulates the economy. And I like to tie in local government to economic stimulation, because many people feel local government is only about picking up garbage and cleaning box drains. It is not. But the decentralized approach to governance of the People's Partnership is something that stimulated growth within the entire country and within communities, local economic development. But that is a talk for another time. Tonight, I just wanted to tell you that you have to stand with your councillor, Chris Hussein. You have to stand with your member of parliament. Sometimes you see people using social media to bash our representatives. You want to bash Chris Hussein. Is Chris Hussein in government? Is Chris Hussein in charge of the treasury? Let us put blame where it should be. Don't go on Facebook and bash your UNC MP and your UNC councillor when they are doing the best they can and they are being deprived by this wicked PNM government. We and the UNC must be united. I am very confident that people who are undecided Many people who are undecided have already joined us. Many people who used to belong to other political parties are joining the UNC in droves. Many people who don't get involved in politics at all even have joined the UNC. The UNC is on a road to victory. The PNM's days are numbered. Stay united, stay strong, stay UNC.